Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Warnich of Statewide News Service, jbiztechphilly.com, and as you can see here, now columnist for the Jewish Press.
Right, I'm having fun doing all of that, and my column is Albany Beat, and I talk about how government relates to the Jewish community, or doesn't, as the case may be. And with us today is a member of government, I should say. It's the Schenectady Fire Chief, Ray Senecal. So welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
we're always putting out some sort of fire, but you're putting them out literally. So
That's for sure. Yes.
how long have you been on the job? It's been about 4 years?
27 years.
Right, but as chief?
2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yes.
That's an elected position. How do you become chief? Maybe I want to be the chief over
It's a
there.
competitive exam, it's civil service exam.
Really?
No, not for chief?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought you were appointed by...
Well, you need to take an exam as with every, from the
Okay.
entry level,
Yeah.
throughout all your promotions in your career, there's a civil service exam.
But then the mayor appoints you, right?
He does, but
And
you have to be on.
You have to
top
be
30.
eligible.
Right.
You have to be eligible. Sometimes they appoint you provisionally, and then you take the exam.
That's correct.
Okay, I know
Yes.
about that too.
Yes.
But the common council, I mean, the mayor appoints you, but then the common council signs off, or the city council signs off on it,
That's
right?
correct.
So you sailed through. You didn't have a problem, I would presume.
Well, it's very competitive. We have a lot of good people in our
No,
department, so.
But the city council
Yes.
passed it unanimously. I mean,
Yes, they
you know,
did.
okay. I mean, I'm sure there wasn't something.
You know, being in Schenectady, though, I mean, you hear, I mean, on the radio, tell me the facts, but you know, like their older buildings compared to, I don't know, your next door neighbor, Niskayuna, or some other, I mean, I live in Bethlehem, which is a volunteer fire department. I mean, it's probably a harder job to be in an older city. I mean, just tell me, I guess the facts of what I'm trying to ask is how many fires compared to,
How many literal fires do you put out?
yeah, I mean,
not
how many
office.
calls do you get compared to maybe some other city that has more modern buildings? Yes, I'm saying that.
Right. Actually, you know, we cover quite an area compared to our you know, neighboring communities, if you will. Yes, our structures are older, infrastructure is older. However, we also have, the older construction is also actually safer. It's built heavier, it's built better. The newer construction is a lot lighter weight.
That's interesting.
Although, if you look at the number of people in your neighboring communities and how big it is, how big they are compared to us, and we have several multi-dwelling buildings as well.
So approximately on average, how many fires do you put out? How many alarms are you called to first, and then how many result in fires that you have to put out?
Well, Senecal Fire Department answers in the upwards of 18,000 calls a year.
Okay.
It's a lot.
Well,
7% of that would be EMS and related,
Right.
and 30% of that would be fire. It's pretty well known, we're a busy department.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the good news is, you know, our people are highly trained. You know, the bad news is we have several fires. As does Albany, as Troy, as any
Yeah,
other
yeah, yeah.
You know, neighboring city, if you will.
Most of the fires in Hamilton Hill, or is I'm just stereotyping?
No, it's, right, it's, you know, everybody from the richest of rich to the poorest of poor have medical issues, medical conditions.
But that's
they
an
have fires.
EMS thing. I'm talking about for putting out, you know, blazes that are engulfing
No, it's,
homes.
we work in
and
all areas of the city. It's pretty well spread out.
spread out.
Yeah, you
Okay,
know.
it's all burning down.
I mean, it's just the same policy like in Albany. It's, ooh, there's a fire truck, so where is it going? To an old age home where, you know, it's following an ambulance. And I always, we have so many guests on our Jewish View, of course. We have the Albany Fire Chief also, so I asked them the same thing. You know, why are you spending time of these firefighters just going to some old person? I mean, there's an ambulance there. You know, they'll take care of the person. You don't need a whole fire engine to help an old person that's very, very sick.
Right. Well, you know, that's a common misunderstanding, if you will. The fire department, whether it be Albany or Schenectady, we're spread out throughout the community. So when there's a call for service, call for help, whether it be medical or fire, we're throughout the community. We're in every neighborhood. We can be there immediately. As you know, emergencies, seconds count. So we were able to put a fire engine on the scene very quickly. And if somebody is having a medical issue, their house is on fire, It's important.
You have 4 stations, right?
We do. We have
Yeah.
4 stations.
What's your
throughout the community.
staff? How many firefighters do you have?
We have 119 firefighters in the department.
And are you up to speed with it, or do you have vacancies, or?
We try to stay up to speed, and we have 3 people in the academy at this time.
But 119 is
Full force. 119,
full
that's
force,
correct.
okay.
Yes.
When you say the academy, so which comes first? Like
The
you pick
academy.
out a person and then say, well, you're gonna be our firefighter, so you better get trained? Or there's people like, almost like a baseball team, hey, there's some guys in the minors, hey, we'll pick out a few that we like, and then you'll work for Schenectady.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, there's a competitive civil service exam that you have to qualify. You need to be a paramedic before we even interview, so
Oh,
you have to
that's
be a
interesting.
paramedic, and you have to score in the top of the exam. At that point, we do interviews, and the people that are selected, we send to the fire academy. So prior to being appointed as a Schenectady City firefighter, you have to be of a paramedic certification here statewide.
That's an EMT, that's what you mean? by
EMT
paramedic?
is the lower level. There's levels.
Really?
It's EMT, and then there's paramedic, which also require a 2-year college degree as well.
Really, it's pretty good, I
Yes.
didn't know that you have to have that much.
Well,
But
the
what about the
department-
physical test? I mean, house tour, maybe I should be a fire. I don't know, I'm not-
Well, we have, you do need to pass a physical agility test prior to be appointed.
How much pounds do you have to lift up?
Well, it doesn't go
I
by.
mean, these guys are, they're carry people up 3 floors. I mean, you must have to
That's correct.
be pretty strong. I
Well,
mean,
there's the fireman's carry also, which is where the weight's distributed over your shoulders, so.
Right,
so, yeah.
right. So there's a lot to do prior to actually being appointed to the department. And once you are hired, right now we have people in the Utica Fire Academy. That's where we
Okay.
send our people, and that's where they're further trained to be firefighters. And then when they come out of the academy, once they're certified, really that's when we start to train the individuals to how we operate and what we do. It's a dangerous business.
Is there an obligation that when you send them to the Utica Academy and they pass, that they have to come and spend time in the Schenectady Fire Department? Or if they decide, oh, well, I got through this training here, now I can go off to Milwaukee or some other place and...
Well, we've never had that, thankfully, but they're hired by the city of Schenectady, and then we send them to school and we train them.
So it's a paid
Yes.
academy,
that's
it's paid by the city, and
That's
then,
correct.
so they're getting paid while they're training,
They are.
but there's no obligation for them to come back to Schenectady to serve, and,
Well, technically, no.
Okay.
We've never had an issue, with that. The individuals hold a New York State paramedic card. It's something that, the old days, you took the exam and you could be appointed to the department, and pretty much that was it. Nowadays, there's several things you need to do. You have to be fairly highly educated just to be appointed to the department. It's no easy task. So we don't have many individuals that are being hired, being trained, and then decide to leave.
well...
We want their whole heart in the department.
Well, it reminds me of physicians, when they go into training, there's a commitment in New York State where you have to serve in a physician shortage area if New York State's going to pay a portion of your tuition. So you may want to think about that and
Right.
make sure that there's actually, that they're committed to 2 or 3 years of firefighting, that what you're investing in them for training pays off for the city.
Sure.
Just a thought. What was in your 25-year career, what was your most harrowing moment?
Oh, that's a difficult question. When you say
Where you went
harrowing,
home to your wife and you said,
Made that out
I'm
of
so
line.
happy, yeah, I'm so happy.
Well, that's a difficult question. I really don't know that I have one.
So tell us
moment.
more than one.
It's what we do.
Love hearing these fire stories. No?
It's for medical. You may be comforting an elderly patient at one time. You have to be very tender, very gentle with an individual who maybe just had lost their husband, wife, or whatnot of 60 years.
Right.
The next call may put you on the roof of a burning building at
Right.
2 o'clock in the morning on a 0-degree night.
Right.
So you have to be well versed, if you will, well rounded, if you will.
Yeah.
So is so many different levels of things you need to do, and it's all fulfilling.
What was going through your mind when those homes were burning across from City Hall on J Street? What was, I mean, you just looked like you were so helpless, like,
Well, I certainly didn't have the feeling of helpless at all. We have a large building with several people.
Yeah.
We actually evacuated the upwards of 60 people that night. So we had obviously heavy fire in those two buildings, so our main concern is life safety initially, the people in the building. My people and their people.
Yeah, no doubt, but,
Yeah.
you
we
can't.
were focused on what the job at hand was. So
Right.
We certainly...
But fire destroys as much as water destroys.
Sure.
I mean, it just, when you have a hurricane or you have a massive flooding, it's just helplessness. I mean, you just can't do anything except take care of your own safety.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about your ability to fight the fire by any means.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the fact that, you know what I'm getting at? I mean,
yeah,
it's like...
I do, but
this is
far from it. Actually, I think, not to disagree with you, but for me, just the opposite from helplessness. What could have happened?
Yeah.
Our job is obviously to save lives and contain the fire, and when you're handed that situation, as most people have seen on the media, actually quite the opposite, that we felt, unfortunately, we had lost a life.
Yeah.
But that's tragic enough, but we were able to contain the fire, prevent it from spreading.
So what happens now with that swath of land that's vacant now, right? It's vacant?
It is vacant at this point. It will be, it's still owned by the owner, and they have the choice to either rebuild, not rebuild, sell, or whatnot.
This is interesting what you were saying on that note, that it's like you're sitting, many around, and then there's a fire, and you have to be up for it. I once read that it's very hard, maybe it's the same idea as a policeman, you're traveling around, and then there's a robbery, and your high blood pressure has hit the roof.
Adrenaline. The adrenaline.
So
Absolutely.
do they find that in the long run that firefighters have a maybe deteriorating health because of that, or heart problems?
Well, it's interesting because I find that question interesting because I've thought about that. I'm big on physical fitness. As you said, it could be 2 o'clock in the morning, and we really don't sleep in the station, the firehouses, in the days gone by, yes. But when you're doing 18,000 calls on 4 firehouses, it doesn't leave you much time for
napping.
Exactly. So if your heart rate, let's say at 2 o'clock in the morning, you may have just gotten back from a call and you're trying to get a little rest period and you're in a chair or whatnot, and your heart rate is 60, and a call comes in for, a house fire with people trapped, your heart rate literally go from 60 to 200 in a matter of seconds. Strictly stress. And what doctors will tell you is, you don't need stress, and that's what it strictly is. Your heart rate is. So how healthy is that? And it's also interesting to know that's the #1 killer of firefighters.
Now,
cardiac-related heart attacks. Correct.
Now, like you're saying, you look healthy, you probably work out, you stay fit, you probably have a good diet.
It's a physical job.
But you just quit smoking, or are you a smoker?
Never smoked.
Never smoked? Oh, okay.
Good.
All right.
Enough
I
smoke
tried,
from
when
the
I
fires
tried when I
over
was younger,
here.
I tried to. I just something I couldn't do.
Oh, okay.
Enough smoking,
I'm
and they're
sorry.
inhaling from the fire.
That's right. No, I had
Well,
some.
there again is common. There again, we'll talk about the fire we just spoke of, the large fire. Men and women in the department climbed 3 to 4 stories with all their heavy gear, carrying, fire
How
hoses.
heavy would that
And then they
gear
went to
be?
work once they got there, so.
How heavy is that?
Oh,
would you
depends,
say?
anywhere from 50 to 100 pounds, depends if you're wet or not. And you're climbing all these stairs
Yeah,
at
I
2
know,
o'clock in
that's
the
tough
morning,
over here.
not for anybody who's not in shape.
And now I wanted to tell you about in the Jewish community that maybe you might want to reach out and make this part of your repertoire or whatever of community engagement. But, in the Jewish religion, we use candles a lot. We use them for the Sabbath, Friday night.
Sure.
We have Hanukkah, where it's 8 days, 8 nights, and we light, a total of probably 50 candles over the course of what is it? How many
A lot of
candles come in a
candles
box?
on it.
Because the box of candles has for the whole week. And then we have for memorial candles, yurtsite candles. You know, we have those that are lit. So you know, curtains catch on fire, whatever. You know,
Sure.
but I always put aluminum foil on top of the table,
Right.
and then we put the candle holders, you know, on aluminum foil. But, you know, maybe there's more outreach because maybe you didn't know that we use candles so much and so regularly,
Right.
that maybe there could be an educational aspect to try to help prevent.
They do have that in Brooklyn, though.
Exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's
What do they
what
have in
they
Brooklyn?
say. Well, just that education, because actually, it's not only that, but just because there's so many candles, how many candles does a normal person, maybe in the olden days where there was no electrical lights, obviously you had a lot of candles, but nowadays, what normal person has so many candles going on, and every Friday night, and Hanukkah, like Mark was telling us, and of course, number two, with religious families, there's a lot of little kids, and you know them, you know, I have also, you know, kids trying to play with a candle, it's cute,
Sure.
you know, and they actually, they come up and say that, I don't know if majority, but many out of proportion, or the burn centers in Brooklyn are from Orthodox Jews. You know, kids playing or something knocked over, and that's what Mark is kind of
And
saying.
you have 3 synagogues and a Chabad Center by Union College in Schenectady, so you really.
So they did put out an educational, hey, just be careful, you know, if kids are around, you gotta watch those candles, that kind of idea.
Right. Well, first of all, I mean, there is no safe way to handle candles. It's an open flame. And as far as, you know, in respect to religion is one avenue. People use them for the aroma. Some people use them at night just as a calming factor. People just like candles. There is no safe way to operate with candles other than use caution, pay attention.
Right.
Don't fall asleep.
But having a fire education program would help, you know, especially before Hanukkah, you know, do something where you bring awareness that you should be safe, you know.
Right.
Just like you bring awareness that fire detectors, you should.
Smoke detectors.
Smoke detectors, you should change the batteries twice a year.
Well, talk about even bigger, is there a fire education? I mean, just even for, not for the Jewish kids, but even the, you know, you go to elementary schools, don't play with the fires. Or,
We do have a very aggressive fire prevention program along with our fire investigation. And, you know, we go to the schools, we reach out to the schools, especially in October during Fire Prevention Month. And actually, fairly recently, we did have a fire, and when we went to the fire, when the fire was called in, there was a youth, a young child who actually called the fire department. And when we arrived, she recognized one of our firemen from coming to the school and came and told him, you know, that it was what she did. And her mother smelled smoke, she smelled smoke, and the child actually called 911 and probably saved her life. So, you know, that was fulfilling. You talked about was fulfilling. That's really a good feeling that, you know, we help somebody to help themselves.
Right.
You know, so that was pretty major that she learned that in school from our fire prevention program.
excellent.
The other thing is that I wanted to pick up on something Rabbi Simon mentioned earlier was that, you know, when you need to go shopping and you're on duty, you got to bring the whole crew with the fire truck to the Price Chopper because you don't want to have a call while you're shopping and then have to run back to the firehouse to, you know, so I just...
Well, we don't do a lot of shopping on duty.
Okay.
The men and women, when they come to work in the morning, they bring what they need.
Oh, really?
Well, we're a busy
Okay.
department, you know. We certainly, between our training and our calls and our regular, you know, keeping our equipment up in the morning and whatnot, there's not a lot of time. And if they don't, you know, if something happens where they're unable to even make lunch, make dinner, which happens very often because of the call volume, they'll pick something up from a submarine store. They'll call ahead. They'll have it ready, and they can just run in, grab it, and come out. We don't go to Price Chopper. We don't have that time or that luxury.
You have a refrigerator?
Yeah, again, those are the older days. We don't.
Well,
do
this
that
is
longer.
why I ask,
No,
you
no, I
know, so
appreciate that.
that's,
Yeah.
you know.
There's a lot of times we call it cold meat and warm salad. You make dinner, you make lunch, it's on the table, and the bell rings, and
You're done.
you're
Yeah.
done. Yeah.
So also, I asked this about when we have law enforcement officials in, and I ask about Law and Order, SVU, and Law and Order. But what about Chicago Fire? And when you see these TV shows that try to emulate what really goes on in a firehouse or
Right.
in a city, how do you look at those? Do you watch those and say, "Oh,
I've
never
watched
here,"
it a few times. I've
and I'm
watched
glad
it,
I'm not in
yeah.
Chicago, which is a larger city.
Yeah,
So.
I find it difficult to watch. I've watched, I believe, two episodes, and I haven't watched the full episodes.
Of Chicago Fire?
Yes, it's
Okay.
TV.
Yeah, right.
Has to be exciting. It has to have drama.
Right.
It has. Otherwise, it wouldn't be one of the better shows. So,
Right.
yeah, it's something I don't put a lot of weight into, if you will.
Yeah, it's
A little bit. The camaraderie is there for sure. And it's nice to see that in the show. But as far as
Now, sometimes they have retired firefighters on the set to make it look real, to tell the actors how to make it look real.
Right.
So do you see some of that? Do you look, oh, we'd never carry that person like that, or we'd never do that, or
Yeah, some of the wardrobe that they use is just not real. Some of the things they do, I think it's very modern. It's
Okay.
a little sell, but
what-
we're professional.
Well, there used to be the show in the 70s, I think, called Emergency.
Yes.
That was, you're the same.
That was probably more realistic.
That was more
than-
realistic.
What you're talking about, that'd be an interesting question, I think. Look, what about more modern fire equipment? Things change after,
Oh, sure, very drastically. Yes.
what a few things you can tell us, maybe some, I don't even know. what it would be.
Well, there again, as technology changes, and as we all know, in the last 30 to 40 years, the changes in wireless communications, in computers. We have one of the largest changes for the fire industry in the last, say, 10 or 15 years, is we have thermal imaging cameras. And what that is, helps us see through the smoke, if you will. It sees changes in temperature. So that's important. If you have a very dark, most fires are zero visibility, very dark, you can put this camera up to your vision and you can locate the hotter areas, which help you, fight the fire.
makes sense.
Or locate a person.
Locate a person.
Right,
Exactly.
yeah.
We have what we call personal protective alarms on our bodies, on our gear. That if there's a firefighter that is in trouble, he can signal this alarm, or if there's no movement, signaling that he's in trouble, this alarm starts to sound so you can locate him. So there's some very, very good safety features.
So everything's up to date in Schenectady in terms
Oh,
of these
absolutely.
features? Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
yes.
You go to these fire conventions and learn about the new technology and
We
come
do.
back with a request and say, and the city council says we can't afford that? Or are you one of those agencies that, hey, you need it, this is life-saving,
Yeah.
we can't say no?
Well, safety is our number one concern for not only the citizens, but our people as
And
well.
for the city council?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah.
council, the mayor, the city's been very good.
Okay.
They realize that, and we appreciate that.
Okay.
We have,
So you pretty much get what you need when you...
We pretty much, there again, there's always something that you need that you want, but, they
Right.
treat us very well and they understand our position.
How does the hierarchy work in the city of Schenectady? Because like Wayne Bennett is a commissioner,
He's
does
the
he...
public safety commissioner.
And he oversees fire and police?
That's correct.
And anything else? Is there another branch or?
He oversees fire and police, he's a public safety commissioner, and he gets involved in other aspects as well.
So how's he doing because he was former state police superintendent.
That's correct.
I don't believe they had much of a fire presence in the state police. So
No.
did he have a learning curve?
Well, management is similar in a lot of different ways, and Commissioner Bennett brings an unparalleled amount of expertise to the table. He's been around for a long time.
Yes, he has.
And he's an excellent.
Not to say he's old. It just
No, I
means that
didn't
he's
say
been
that.
around a long
Right,
time, yes.
he-
I mean, you were around a long time. You're 51?
4. 4.
54,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
So you were 51 when you were appointed, I guess, when
Yes,
you were
that's
there.
correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but you're 54 and you look 34, so
Well, I
that's good.
appreciate
you
that.
know? But, so.
The department's giving me gray hair.
Prematurely. But you have a good rapport, I mean, with management, administration?
Absolutely.
I mean,
True professional
because
people.
there was a time 10 years ago where it didn't always have, it wasn't always that way, I guess.
That's correct.
So,
We feel fortunate
yeah.
to have the people around us that we do, that work for the department, that work, Mayor McCarthy, Commissioner Bennett. They're my bosses. They're excellent to work with. They're very knowledgeable.
Okay.
They have a very strong background in civil service.
Now you can keep your job. No, I'm just teasing you. No, I'm
Mayor
just.
comes to every fire we have.
Oh, yeah.
3 o'clock in the morning, he's there. 2
No,
in the morning, he's there.
That's
Yeah.
unusual, isn't it?
It's
I
very
mean, why would
unusual.
a mayor
Right.
come to every fire?
Well, yeah, I know. That doesn't happen in Albany.
Well, I don't, I can't speak for
I know
Albany,
that. I know
but,
that. I'm making the
you know,
statement.
no,
That's
I
okay.
understand.
So I see here when
Calling
I.
us because he knows what we do. And so
Right.
when we request a piece of equipment or safety equipment, the mayor and the commissioner, they have a first-hand knowledge of what's going on in the street.
Well, I think that's why important that Mark and I bring, public officials like yourself on the Jewish View, because people, at a policeman, fireman, everybody knows the name, but exactly what you're doing, how you're trained, it's
Yeah,
news to me, it's
absolutely.
news to everybody. Yeah, if they have fire, pull out a hose and, and you sprinkle
Sure.
some water on, but there's so much more to the job than people
Absolutely.
should know about.
I mean, there was this massive fire in Manhattan where this church.
Just recently.
Yeah,
Yes.
and the flames that were coming out of those windows. I mean, it was such a shame. It was just, you just saw all this destruction.
Well, how about the ability of the fire department to maintain and hold it to that one building?
Exactly.
You saw the volume of fire, and credit to the FDNY for able to hold that to that
And not
one
have it
structure.
spread to the entire city block,
Yeah,
But that was
Yeah,
just,
the
I mean,
city
and then
block, yeah.
the pictures afterwards of how it was just a frame
yeah.
and the rubble that was inside. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
just
It was, pictures really were
sent
amazing.
chills up my spine.
It really does, it really does.
Let me ask you, I have here that, I always get into this, Rabbi Simon tells me, but it's public information. It's your salary was $137,000 when you first took office. What is it now?
140,000.
$140,000?
Yes.
Okay. You're worth every penny.
Well, I appreciate it. I work 7 days a week, that's for sure.
That's for sure, I know.
Yeah, what is the hours? That's a good question in itself.
Well-
I mean, would know it's not a 9 to 5, but how many hours?
Let's see, Mother's Day, I worked a fire at the Gazette Building on
Oh,
all day
yeah.
Mother's Day, so that was Sunday. The last Sunday before that, we had a fire. Let's see, it's 6 o'clock, 5
Yeah.
o'clock now, so today's a 12-hour day by the end of the day, so.
You don't have hours in the job, or it's just like
No,
any fire?
I
I mean, just you, even you personally,
It's
but
usually 8 to 6, 8 to 5, 8 to 6.
you're
The
gonna show up
department's a
for
24-hour
anything.
day.
you're gonna show up even if it's, hey, I'm off now, it's midnight, let someone else take care of it, or?
We have very professional chiefs that run the department, our battalion chiefs, our platoon commanders. But if there's a large fire,
You're gonna be-
we're gonna be there to make sure
But
that
what's
they
a
have what they
normal
need.
firefighter? What would it be his shift during a week?
The firefighters work basically 42 to 48 hours a week. We work an office schedule
But-
plus.
Yeah.
But do they work where they're 2 days on and 3 days off
They
or
work
something like
24
that?
hours on, 72 hours off. That's correct. No, there's a way I would look at it, I used to look at it, when I worked 24 hours, I came home, and then, of course, you would have to go to bed and get some
Yeah.
rest. So I looked at it as 2 days on, 2 days off, basically.
When you first started 25 years ago, even look back 20 years ago, and you look at the firefighters now, are they in better shape now? Are they better physically fit? I mean, because, I don't know, I just
Well, I
get the
think you
sense
have
that
to-
we're all more into fitness now. There's
Yeah.
fitness magazines, there's more of an awareness, TV
more of an
shows,
emphasis on it,
more of an emphasis. So do you see, there's no more of the potbellies and more of
Well,
the,
we're more professional. There again, you have to be more educated. In the older days, you took an exam with a high
Yeah.
school education, and you were appointed to the department. Now, there again, there's 60 credit hours of college. You have to have a paramedic degree. You have to have a emergency
Right.
medical technician card. So there's more, you're a
Training.
highly educated person now. It's a
Yeah.
little different. But I think the generation, you have to look at it generational. This generation isn't as fit, I believe, as, let's say,
Yeah.
20 years ago?
exactly.
How old, I could just say, what's the age of retirement is mandatory? I mean, again, I know you look fit, but I mean, you can imagine a 55, 60-year-old man carrying, like you say, 50, 60 pounds on their back. I mean, there has to be a limit
Well,
of how much they can
it's a
take.
young man's job, without
Yeah.
question, but the retirement is 25 years. The average people we're hiring are anywhere from 25 to 35, so you're 55 years old at retirement, if not older.
Well, this begs now, you opened up the question for me. You're at that age, you've had that
Doesn't carry the
tenure.
hoses
Are
over
you,
anymore.
I know, but are you going to be in this, plan on being in this position, you know, for much longer, or?
Yes,
you know,
I
you-
plan on being here for a while.
Okay,
For a while,
I mean,
sure,
you've
sure.
brought it up, you know,
I have a focus to, move the department and forward, and I'm very proud of what we do as a department. It's not, the fire department isn't Chief Senecal, it's Chief Senecal and everybody else on the department.
right.
And so I plan on being here for a while, and I look at it as, I would not ask any of my people to do the job if I couldn't do it, and I can, I feel I can.
Great.
So I think it works well.
Can I just ask you one other thing about juvenile fire setter intervention? What is that about?
Well, we have a juvenile fire setters program, and that is it goes with our fire prevention program, throughout the school system within the city. However, when we do have a fire, or we have somebody who requests our help with some child who may have an interest in fire, we have people trained and continually train them and meeting with the children and educating them and getting the help that they need. Possibly may need more help that we can give them, and we get them to the right people so they're,
Great.
so they're helped.
Okay.
You know, we're out of time, but you're doing such a great job, Chief, that you keep on going with success, and of course, do it with
Thank
good
you.
health.
Yes, continued
appreciate it.
success.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me, I appreciate that.